What It Means to Be You, Part 8. Guys, please subscribe to our new channel because our main channel got 3 strikes and now YouTube will delete our channel. Can't describe how low I feel. All the hard work now gone in vain and now I have to start from starting. Please help me, friends. Now let's start. Violet, who was in winter body, arrived after attending the meeting. Diev stagger, he said. Winter, you never come, so why are you here now? He saw grim expression, and suddenly he turned back and run away in fear. Violet was about to say something, but Winter interrupted and said, Has Diev always acted like this toward you? Violet lowered her head with a gloomy expression. Winter spoke, Is that so? All right, I will take care of him. Winter tried to touch his body, but Violet flinched and said, Wait, our bodies will switch back if we touch. But Winter didn't care and touch her. He said, It doesn't matter, this is much more urgent than the wine acquisition. He hugged her, and their bodies of the two changed in that condition. After that, when Winter didn't let go of Violet, he said, You said you liked introducing your husband to the other guests, so go ahead. She asked anxiously, Did something bad happen? She saw his distress face. She thought something did happen. Does he finally understand the loneliness I felt at all those parties? Is he finally starting to understand me a little? She hugged him and said, All right. Why don't we do just that? Thank you so much for coming today. I really mean it. Winter closed his eyes and said, No problem. As they walk, the clouds suddenly came. It looks like it's going to rain soon. Violet looked up and said, I should have worn my black dress shoes. Winter replied, Don't worry about it. I'll just carry you if it rains. Violet asked, That was a joke, right? This is the first time Winter came in party with Violet. All the guests are surprised. One said, Did Sir Winter came? My goodness. Catherine watched both of them. She suddenly walked towards them with a friendly face. She said, Oh, what brings you here, Winter? Welcome, my dear. I guess you had some free time in your schedule to attend this party. Winter replied in grumpy way, I'm here to find out who my wife said she didn't like. Violet pulled Winter's arm in surprise, as if fighting him right away when he spoke as if she had been depressed. She said, When did I say that? Winter replied, I read your mind. She said, He's just saying that in jest. Winter replied, Didn't you know that I like to make jokes now and then? All the guests glared both of them. Winter crumpled his hands into his pockets, crumpled them as he had an impression, and looked at the people. He then said, Look at their eyes darting around, all disgruntled. Violet was worried but felt a part of her heart tickling. She thought it would be nice if her husband came, but she didn't know it would be this reassuring. Then Violet opened her mouth and said, Winter, let's head over there this time. He replied, I'm not going anywhere. You don't need to rush. We can meet everyone slowly. She thought, it would have been nice had he come to me before I contemplated death, but now is not too late either. Then suddenly rain started. Catherine informed, Everyone, please head inside the building. All the guests rushed. Winter said, Looks like I really have to carry you now. After all, a princess never runs in the rain. Started removing his coat. She asked, What are you? Winter cuts her words and says, Since we'll get wet if we go anywhere, so let's wait here. Hyle will bring an umbrella soon, so let's stay like this for a while. He covered Violet with his coat. She leaned on him. She thought, I can hear his heartbeat. I thought I didn't have any lingering feelings left. I thought it wouldn't matter if I died. But it feels like this faint yet steady sound is giving me a will to live. She tried to look up, but Winter said, You'll get wet, just stay still even if you don't like it. She replied, It's not like that. He asked, Then what is it? She lowered her head and in a low voice she said, I'd like to move to the capital as soon as possible. Winter paused for a while from Violet's words, then he spoke, Having experienced this tea party myself, it really is annoying. I can see why you hated attending them every week. She replied while blushing. I really want to live with just the two of us. He replied, all right, we'll do that then. He hugged her tightly. She replied, also I don't hate standing here with you at all. He replied, that's good to hear. She thought, his embrace is so warm. Then Hyle came. He shouted, President, I've brought an umbrella. He asked, what took you so long? What do you mean? I ran here, Hyle replied. Come closer before you get van soaked, Winter said to Violet. Violet thought, it's a good thing that it rained. Winter's arms are so warm it makes me want to cry. Violet looked at Winter with a warm smile. Winter saw her beautiful face. He grabbed her face, and said, no one can see because of the umbrella. Under was huge that it's impossible to peek. Winter kissed Violet. She suddenly gets lost in thought, if Winter knew how I felt, I wouldn't ever switch our bodies again. That actually might be possible now. We might be able to understand each other even if we don't switch our bodies. And the more we know about each other, the closer we'll become. Then suddenly the rain stopped. They both looked at the sky. Violet squeezed her hand, and said, I guess it was just passing rain. He said, it seems like the rain had stopped. The next day, the couple took a 2-hour train ride from the nearest train station to Cantus Monastery. Entering the wide vineyard owned by the monastery, powerful people in the country were gathered. When the sponsorship party began, monks came out with, thank you for joining today's sponsorship party. I heard that the food is shabby because it's a monastery, but the wine is pretty good. I won't nag you, so please enjoy it. The monk said it and smiled as if it was a joke, and the people laughed along. Winter said to Violet, wow, their wine is incredible indeed. I have to secure a deal with them somehow. Is it that good? She murmured. She smelled the wine found. It's very fragrant, that she couldn't handle it, she thought. Ever since she changed her medicine, she started to have slight nausea, but it was never to this extent. She thought perhaps maybe she is pregnant. No, that's impossible, she murmured. There's no way I'd have morning sickness when we only slept together a week ago. Perhaps it's a side effect of the body switch, but what it can be, a girl hope. Winter saw Violet not taking a sip from her wine glass. He asked, you're not drinking? She replied, yes. I can't drink red wine. If he would like, he can drink mine, hers too. Winter replied happily. All right then. She thought, I've hoped for it for so long. I should stay away from alcohol just in case. I must get properly checked once I get back. After a while, Violet started socializing with other guests. She speak, and so, making use of the white fabric was really incredible. The guest was impressed. They didn't expect her to notice such a small detail. Violet replied, well, it was a stage prop to convey the main character's heartbreak. I was deeply moved by the director's intention. How knowledgeable you are. We'd love to have you at our theater sometime. Winter felt out of place. He thought, it feels like the conversation is somewhat going well. But I have no idea what they're talking about. Violet noticed Winter's mood. She whispers in his ears, if you'd like to socialize with the nobles of Le Crown, there are 100 novels you must read and 15 plays that you must watch. Winter replied, I guess everyone's had plenty of leisure to enjoy while I was out working like a dog. Violet said, shish, be careful of what you say. Winter. Winter took a card. Violet asked this. He replied, it's the card you use to write down your contribution. She said, you haven't given yours yet. I saw them collecting these earlier. He continued, I'm still deciding on how much I should write down. It should be just enough for those monks to gladly give me their wine. She replied, oh, that's why you held on to it. What about 100,000? Even for you? That might be. He replied, the phrase, even for you, doesn't apply to people like me. At times like this, it really makes me feel like you're in the dark. She asked, what do you mean? He replied, you're oblivious of how the world functions. Then a voice approached her. He called Violet. Carlson Lowe, an opera singer and the second son of the Lowe household. Then a blonde handsome man who was far away looked back at Violet and smiled refreshingly. He said, "Violet. Long time no see." Violet approached with joy, hearing the greetings of the two. Winter turned around and Violet smiled happily and called Winter. As Winter approached, Violet introduced them. "This is Carlson, the second son of the Lowe family. You know his face, right?" Winter replied, "I saw it often. What's your relationship with my wife?" Hearing Winter's words, Violet flinched. She said, "Winter, what are you saying?" Carlson smiled. He then replied, "No need to make that kind of face. We are childhood friends. So there has been discussion of marriage between our families at one point, but that is all." Winter replied, "Your childhood friends and have discussed marriage." Carlson said, "Haha, that's quite a strong grip, sir." When Winter tried to break the hand he held for a handshake, Carlson slowly got scared. Violet shook her head as if not to do. Carlson whispered to Violet when Winter tisked his tongue. Carlson whisper, "How can such a jealous person just go outside like that? But why is he always out instead of coming home?" Violet looked embarrassed at Carlson's honest question. Winter kept glaring both of them. Carlson the leave cut before leaving he spoke, "I should leave before I cause further misunderstanding." Violet replied, "All right. We were also just about to take a walk along the vineyard. I will see you next time, Carlson." She pushed Winter and said, "Let's go, Winter." When they both left, Carlson had a sinister smile and he took Winter's name. While walking in the garden she told Winter that it was just something our parents discussed because we've known each other since we were young. That's really it. He angrily replied, "They tried to marry their princess off to a sleazy playboy like him?" Violet took Carlson's stand, said, "He's not as bad as the rumors claim him to be." Winter replied, "Nonsense, I know he's a drunkard." Violet was puzzled and asked, "What? How do you know that?" He replied, "I can tell. The way his hand trembled is a dead giveaway." She said, "Still, you shouldn't jump to conclusions just because of that." He shouts, "You're only defending him because he's your childhood friend." He thought. He just hated the fact that Violet was more involved with a man named Carlson Lowe than he thought. In his head, Violet's long Leawood land came to mind. When he found out that the man who received the tenant's fees even used to be engaged to her, he felt disgustingly depressed. He was going to find out about the land as soon as the event was over. A monk was seen falling. Then someone shouted. Someone called a doctor. The monk fainted. As Violet ran in a hurry, Winter followed her in a surprise. As they got closer, the fallen monk's body was convulsing. Violet leaned down to examine the condition of the young monk. The poison was spreading blue from the monk's hand, and in his hand was a bundle of donation envelopes with raw flowers received from the patrons. Someone shouts, "What are you waiting for? You, call the doctor, and you, collect all the envelopes." Violet shouts, "Don't touch envelope." She checked the flowers in the envelope one by one and left one bag aside. It looked almost the same, but it was a different flower with a dot behind the petals. Violet immediately loosened the ribbon around her waist and tied it tightly to the monk's arm so that the poison would no longer rise. She thought, who could do, using such poison? Perhaps someone wants to harm him. Scene shifts. The night after the sponsor party, Violet and Winter both went back home. "I find it suspicious that such a dangerous flower was there. I'm certain that someone was trying to harm the monk on purpose." Winter said, "The party has been cancelled. You don't have to worry about it for now. The police will take care of the rest. At least the monk's life was safe thanks to you." Violet continued, "But I can't just overlook this incident." But Winter left the room. Her maid said, "Madam Violet, why don't we change your clothes first? They must be uncomfortable." Violet agreed. "Ooh, let's do that first. Will you call the doctor for me after I change my clothes?" "Pardon?" Maid asked. "Are you not feeling well again?" Violet replied, "No, it's different this time. There's something I want to confirm with him." On the day Violet and her husband joined in a room, Violet's doctor, Beryl, was called by James Blooming. James paid a lot of money and ordered that if Violet showed signs of pregnancy, he would unconditionally answer that she is pregnant. He soon found out that Violet was not pregnant even though she had the same symptoms as a pregnant woman. James's medication will cut her menstruation for the time being, and she will suffer from nausea and fever. Still, she was not pregnant. The money he received from James had long been spent on his young son's school expenses. Beryl, who is now called to Violet's bedroom, examined her with a trembling hand, but an expression of no concern. Beryl reacted more violently to hide his fear. Then Violet called his name. He snapped out of his thought. Violet continued, "What do you think, Beryl? I've been feeling a lot more nauseous lately, and I also think I have a slight fever. I was thinking that maybe I could be pregnant." He blandly said, "Congratulations, little lady. You're pregnant." Violet, who paused at the words, asked carefully, "Is that really?" "Yes, it is," he replied. At that moment, there was a bright light on Violet's face. She struggled to get up with a heavy body. She said, "Doctor, my body has been feeling better ever since you came. Thank you so much." Even though the expression of emotions was not strong, joy was smeared in her gestures and voice. Beryl was shaken again by the consistent warm greeting of the little lady. He replied, "I'm glad I could be of help. Keep it a secret from others for a while. My husband doesn't want children, so I'll have to tell him myself." He said, "I understand, madam." She thought, Winter didn't tell her why he didn't want children, so she couldn't know why. She was afraid of her husband's reaction, but at the same time, she was full of happiness. She continued, "I'll have to talk with my husband. I'll reward you for this the next time we meet." He replied, "All right, madam. I'll be heading out now." He hurriedly excused himself and ran away, soothing himself that nothing big would happen to him. A white lie like this couldn't possibly cause too much trouble, right? Violet went to see her husband. "Winter, are you busy? I have something I'd like to discuss with you." He replied, "I was only looking over the brewery case. The deal might fall through with the commotion that happened." He then paused and said, "Wait a minute. Now that I think about it, the monk was saved thanks to you." She replied, "And so?" He continued and said, "Since they're nobles who regard etiquette so highly, I assume they'll pay us a visit soon to thank us. What if you bring up the wine deal then?" She frowned at Winter's words, and replied, "I wasn't expecting anything in return though." He continued, "We can switch bodies if you're uncomfortable doing it. I'll talk about it with them instead." She replied, "You're so cold-hearted, Winter. How could you use an incident like that against them?" He smirks and said, "You call that cold-hearted? You'd be surprised to hear of the things I've done." She said, "I believe that you wouldn't have anything bad." He replied, "You thought I could have all this wealth without doing anything bad? How naive of you. You don't know anything about me. No wonder you brought up the divorce." He asked, "So, what is it that you wanted to discuss?" He replied, "I wanted to ask you, I have a question. About the child, are you saying that you don't want to have a baby with me, or do you just hate it?" "I just hate it," he said. "I really want children a lot, so, just, is not a solution to compromise," she replied. Looking at his wife's desperate expression, it seemed that just saying no would not solve it. He continued, "I don't have time to pay attention to my child." She replied, "I'll give birth and raise it on my own. Your child will be growing up without even knowing about it," Violet said imploringly. He thought, of course, she will resign if he shrugs off and speaks of the title. After observing her for some time, Winter has recently learnt that his wife has a strong sense of responsibility. Although she did not hear from Ash about the dissolution of the royal family, she was willing to take responsibility for her brother's actions. But today, he couldn't just break her heart, especially when he just met with the man who used to be engaged to her. He thought he just had to hand it over now. He continued, it could happen somehow, if the contraception doesn't work. What do we do then? She asked. He replied, you should give birth. Violet's eyes widened like a child, wondering what she was so happy about trying to avoid the situation. Thank you, she said. Violet was satisfied with his answer. Then, she held his hand tightly, as if she had learned from him, because she wanted to express her joy so that Winter knew it. Then Winter shook off his hand and get up and said, aren't you hungry? Why don't we have a meal? We didn't get to eat anything at the party. She replied, that's true, but it's late and I don't want to wake up the maids. He continued, I can whip something up. It's no big deal. She asked, do you know how to cook? He replied, I did work at a restaurant until I was 12. Now follow me. He thought, this a little bit, after she does what she wants, after buying her what she wants to have, and letting her do everything she wants to do, after she finds something she would like more than having a child. After that, he thought it wouldn't be too late to say that he couldn't have children. Winter, who had been pondering for a long time, said in a shaky voice. Winter felt like a sinner abandoned in the desert after seeing her short, lucid joy, but soon going to crush her enthusiasm down with nonchalance. He managed to ease his anxiety by telling himself that there was nothing to worry about because there was no way he will have children anyway. Now our manhwa ends here, guys. I'm glad that Winter didn't bring up the title incident. He has no idea how guilty Violet felt about that whole ordeal even though she had no control over it. Plus, if he had brought it up, he would have confirmed her suspicion that he hates her for not being able to give him the title he wants. That stupid doctor. That's not a white lie. That's a hurtful lie. Did you not think the Duke and Duchess's request was suspicious, or did he just turn a blind eye to it because it benefits him? Well friends, please subscribe my new channel as you know my channel condition. Now I have to start from scratch. Please subscribe and like and comment if you want new part. Till then, bye.